Thank you very much for taking the time, Mr. Schipke. So the IMF left China's annual growth target unchanged at 7.5%. That's after months of credit speculation that many think could be a drag to the Chinese economy. What's underpinning China's growth?
We expect the implementation of the reforms as announced by the third-party plenum to be implemented gradually. At the same time, our projections, however, also reflect the measures that have been announced by the government, the targeted measures, and a somewhat more benign or better global environment that should also support growth.
Let's talk about first quarter GDP number. The big question now is what Chinese leaders will do in facing slower growth. Are we going to see stimulus measures to perk up the economy in the near future?
Well, I think, first of all, the State Council has already announced a set of measures to be rolled out. They range from expanding the tax credit for small and medium enterprises to accelerating investments in railroads and also increasing investment in urban shanty towns. But the key here is that it also signals something, that the government is willing to provide some support in order to reach its growth target of about 7.5%.
The Chinese government has said that they will sacrifice growth for reforms. So if there's no major stimulus measures, how are reforms going to be impacted?
Since the authorities have indicated the target is at about 7.5%, there's actually some flexibility. Somewhat slower growth, if it is associated with the implementation of the reforms, is something that the IMF also supports.
Mr. Schipke, many economists have said credit growth remains the biggest challenge to the Chinese economy. It's the root of many current problems, including the risks stemmed from shadow banking. Your thoughts?
So the key now is to move away from this credit-driven investment, and by slowly withdrawing the fiscal stimulus and relying less on credit financing, the government is able to move toward a new growth model. And that will also imply that the incentives for shadow banking that have financed the stimulus in the past will somewhat be less.
So the United States and Europe are in a full recovery mode right now. How is a slower China going to impact world economic recovery?
Demand from the United States and Europe is picking up. That's good news for emerging market, and it's also good news for China. What it actually implies is that the room for reforms in China, or this is an opportunity to implement reforms.